Governor Lethra Voss had always believed defeat was a concept for lesser minds. She stood at the panoramic window of the Veltari Imperial Citadel, watching the red twin suns sink beneath the bruised clouds of Velthar Prime. For 3 centuries, her species had ruled the Orion Spur. They had conquered worlds, bent civilizations to their will, and erased those who resisted. Their empire was inevitable, unstoppable, eternal. Until the humans arrived. Now, the empire lay fractured. Their grand fleets, once the terror of the galaxy, were drifting wreckage in space lanes that had belonged to Velthar for generations. Their conquered worlds were in rebellion. Their throne world was blockaded. Their once proud banners burned in public squares across a dozen systems. Lethra folded her clawed hands behind her back, forcing herself to breathe evenly. Panic was unbecoming. Emotion was weakness. She had been raised from hatching to rule. She would not be remembered as the governor who trembled. The doors behind her hissed open. A guard entered, head lowered in submission. "Governor," he said, "the Imperial Council requests your presence in the Hall of Reckoning." Of course they did. The Council would demand surrender terms. They would talk of survival, appeasement, negotiation. They would speak as if the Velthari were prey. Lethra turned from the window. "Prepare my transport." The guard hesitated. "Governor, the humans have already landed delegates on the Capitol's spire."
"So soon?"
"Efficient predators." She nodded once. "Then we will hear their terms." The Hall of Reckoning had never felt so small. Towering columns of black stone rose to a vaulted ceiling carved with images of Velthari victories, worlds aflame, enemies kneeling. The irony was not lost on Lethra as she took her place at the central dais. Around her sat the Imperial Council, aged strategists, warlords, scholars of domination. Their faces were drawn tight. Their eyes betrayed fear. At the opposite end of the hall stood the human delegation. There were only 3 of them. No armor. No ceremonial displays. No weapons in sight. Just 3 upright figures, 2 men and 1 woman, clad in simple dark uniforms. Their eyes were forward. Their posture relaxed. They did not bow. They did not cower. They simply waited, as if they owned the room. Lethra's mandibles tightened. A council elder cleared his throat. "Representatives of humanity," he said, "we recognize your victory. State your demands." The woman stepped forward. She was shorter than Lethra by half, soft-skinned, fragile-looking. And yet, something in her eyes radiated the quiet certainty of someone who knew the future already belonged to her species. "We did not come to demand," the woman said. Her voice was calm, carrying effortlessly in the hall. "We came to offer terms." A murmur spread among the council. The woman continued. "You will withdraw all Velthari military forces from occupied systems. You will disband your conquest fleets. You will release all enslaved populations. You will submit to interstellar law overseen by a joint coalition." Lethra leaned forward slightly. "And if we refuse?" The woman smiled, but it did not reach her eyes. "Then there will be no Velthari empire left to refuse." Silence descended. Lethra felt something unfamiliar stir in her chest. A slow, cold realization. The humans were not merely victorious. They were confident in finality. The council began to whisper among themselves. Some spoke of last stands, of hidden fleets, of pride. But even they knew the empire was bleeding out. Another war would only bring extinction. After a long moment, the elder turned to Lethra. "You are governor of the throne world," he said. "Speak." All eyes turned to her. Lethra rose slowly. Her voice echoed through the ancient hall. "The Velthari Empire has endured for 10,000 cycles," she said. "We do not kneel. The human woman tilted her head. Then you will fall. Lethra met her gaze. She could sense no hatred, no cruelty, just a steady resolve, like a mountain unmoved by storms. In that moment, Lethra understood. Pride had brought her people to ruin. Pride would finish the job if she let it. She exhaled. The Velthari will accept your terms, she said. A gasp rippled through the hall. Some council members looked outraged. Others looked relieved. The woman nodded. Then the war ends today. The humans turned and departed without further ceremony. Lethra sat down slowly. Her empire was gone. Her life's purpose gone. Everything she had believed in gone. She did not cry. Velthari did not weep. But inside, something hollow opened. Hours later, Lethra walked the quiet corridors of the citadel. The banners of conquest still hung from the walls, but now they felt like relics of a forgotten civilization. Guards stood listless at their posts. Servants whispered. News of surrender spread like wildfire. She reached her private chambers and sealed the door behind her. For the first time in her life, she allowed herself to slump into a chair. Her claws tapped softly against the polished obsidian desk. She had accepted defeat. She had saved her species from annihilation. And yet, she felt like a failure. The door chime sounded. Governor, a voice said. A visitor requests entry. No, Lethra said. I will see no one. Governor, it is your daughter. Lethra froze. Let her enter. The door opened. A young Velthari stepped inside, her scales still bright with youth, her eyes full of energy that Lethra had not felt in centuries. She carried herself differently than the elders. More curious, less rigid, less burdened by tradition. But that was not what stunned Lethra. Behind her daughter walked a human, a tall man, unarmed, wearing no insignia. His hands were visible, his expression open. Lethra rose sharply. Explain. Her daughter bowed respectfully. Mother, this is Elias Carter. He is a human ambassador assigned to post-war integration. I asked him to come. Lethra's eyes narrowed. Integration. Elias inclined his head slightly. Governor Voss, I apologize for the intrusion, but your daughter requested this meeting, and I believed it important. Lethra looked to her daughter. Speak. The young Velthari's voice trembled with restrained excitement. Mother, the humans are not here to enslave us. They're offering cooperation, shared technology, shared governance, educational exchanges. They're rebuilding worlds we once destroyed. They're asking for our help. Lethra stared at her. Why would they do that? Elias answered gently. Because we don't want another empire rising from ashes in resentment. We want partners, not subjects. Lethra let out a short, humorless laugh. Partners? After you crushed us? Elias met her gaze evenly. We fought because you were conquering us. Now that the war is over, the reason for fighting is gone. Her daughter stepped forward. Mother, I've seen their medical centers, their schools, their art. They welcome former enemies. They don't erase cultures. They preserve them. Lethra felt anger rise. You've been spending time with them. Yes, her daughter admitted. Because someone has to understand what comes next. The governor's voice softened despite herself. And you brought a human into the citadel to lecture me on mercy? No, her daughter said. I brought him so you could see them as they are, not as we imagined. Elias took a slow step forward. Governor, I know you've lost everything you built your life upon, but your people haven't lost their future. That's what we're trying to protect. Lethra studied him. He looked fragile. A single blow could end him. Yet his eyes carried something deeper than fearlessness, conviction. "You humans are strange," she said quietly. "You destroy an empire and then offer friendship." Elias smiled faintly. "We've learned the hard way that vengeance just builds the next war." Silence hung between them. Lethra looked at her daughter. She saw not rebellion, but hope. Something Veltari society had never cultivated. They had only known domination or submission. Never cooperation. "You believe in this path," Lethra said. Her daughter nodded. "I do." Slowly, the governor returned to her seat. Her claws rested on the desk. The weight of generations sat on her shoulders. She had accepted defeat. But perhaps defeat was not the end. Perhaps it was the beginning of something her empire had never understood. She raised her eyes to the human. "What do you want from me, Elias Carter?" He answered without hesitation. "To help us guide your people into peace. Your authority still matters. They will follow your example." Lethra considered the thought. Her legacy could be remembered as the last tyrant or the first reformer. She looked to her daughter again. The young Veltari stood tall, unafraid, already belonging to a future beyond conquest. Finally, Lethra spoke. "Then I will cooperate." Her daughter's eyes shone. Elias bowed respectfully. Outside, the twin suns of Velthar Prime dipped below the horizon, casting the sky into a deep violet glow. The empire had fallen, but in its place, something new was rising. And for the first time in her long life, Governor Lethra Voss allowed herself a quiet thought. Perhaps defeat had saved them all. The following weeks reshaped Velthar Prime in ways Lethra could never have imagined. Human engineers worked beside Velthari architects to dismantle orbital weapon platforms and convert them into trade stations. Rebel worlds once burning under Imperial rule now sent relief shipments back to the throne world. Streets that had known only marching legions now hosted open markets, foreign languages, and unfamiliar music. Lethra watched it all from the Citadel balcony. Every instinct she had been raised with told her this was madness. Letting former enemies walk freely on their sacred world. Allowing alien banners to fly beside Velthari crests. Permitting discussion, debate, even disagreement. Things the Empire had never tolerated. Yet there was no chaos. No collapse. Only motion.
Growth. Life.
Her daughter stood beside her, quietly observing a human-built medical pavilion rising in the plaza below. "They finished the pediatric wing today," her daughter said. "No Velthari hatchling will die from untreated disease again." Lethra said nothing for a long moment. "When I was young," the governor said at last, "we were taught that strength came from taking what others had. That survival meant conquest." Her daughter looked up at her. "And now?" Lethra exhaled slowly. "Now I see strength in something else. In choosing not to destroy when you have the power to do so." Her daughter smiled. Behind them, footsteps approached. Elias Carter joined them on the balcony, holding a small data tablet. "The Coalition Council ratified Velthar's admission today," he said. "You are no longer an occupied world. You are a member species." Lethra regarded him carefully. "And the Empire?" Elias looked toward the horizon. "History. A strange word. Velthari language had no equivalent. They had always believed the Empire was eternal. Now it was simply a chapter closed." Lethra turned back to the city. In the plaza below, a group of Velthari children were chasing a human child in a game of improvised tag. Laughter echoed against stone once stained by war banners. No fear, no hatred, only play. Her chest tightened with something she had never learned to name.
Hope.
She had accepted defeat. But defeat had not been the end of her people. It had been their liberation. Final scene. That night, Lethra walked alone into the Hall of Reckoning. She stood beneath the towering relief carvings of ancient Veltari victories, conquered worlds, kneeling enemies, burning skies. For the first time, she saw them not as pride, but as warnings. She raised a ceremonial torch. One by one, she set fire to the imperial conquest banners hanging from the columns. The flames climbed silk and metal alike, curling the old symbols into ash. Guards watched but did not interfere. Citizens gathered at the doors, silent witnesses. When the last banner burned away, Lethra turned to the crowd. "The Veltari will never again be conquerors," she declared. "We will stand among equals. We will build. We will learn. We will live." No thunderous cheer followed. Instead, something more powerful. A collective exhale, as if an entire species had finally released a breath held for 10,000 years. Closing narration line. She had accepted defeat, until her daughter walked in with a human. And in doing so, she saved an empire from becoming a memory by letting it die and be reborn. And